Long ago, in a forest teeming with life, there lived a man named Tano, whose heart was full of joy. After years of yearning, he and his wife were blessed with a baby girl, their greatest treasure. She was a tiny bundle of hope, with eyes as bright as the morning sun and a laugh that echoed like music through the trees. The couple had prayed for this child, their love growing stronger through the years of waiting. Her arrival felt like a gift from the forest itself. Tano worked tirelessly to provide for his family. His beloved banana garden stretched across a sunlit clearing, its fruit golden and sweet. He cherished the rhythm of tending the soil, watching his crops grow, and selling his harvest at the market. The bananas were not just sustenance, but a lifeline, ensuring his family's stability. Every morning, Tano would rise before dawn, carrying his daughter out to the garden. "See these trees, little one," he would whisper. "They give us life. We must care for them as they care for us." His wife would watch from the doorway, her smile warm but tinged with quiet concern. She knew how deeply Tano felt connected to his work and the forest that surrounded them. Tano's totem was the monkey, a symbol of agility and balance, bridging the human and natural worlds. Stories passed down by his ancestors spoke of how monkeys brought wisdom and protection. So, when 13 hungry monkeys appeared one day at the edge of his garden, Tano saw their arrival as a blessing. Their eyes, wide with desperation, seemed to plead for help. He felt compelled to share his bounty. At first, the monkeys remained in the banana fields, taking only what was offered. They were cautious, almost reverent, as if they understood Tano's generosity. Tano found their presence amusing. "They're my forest kin," he would say to his wife. "As long as we respect each other, there will be peace." But his wife's unease grew with each passing day. "They're getting closer," she warned one evening as they sat by the fire. "Today I saw them near the kitchen window. They didn't run when I shouted." "They're harmless," Tano replied, trying to ease her fears. "I have only been kind to them. If they venture too close, they'll always find their way back." His words were meant to reassure, but deep down, he felt a shadow of doubt. The monkeys had started lingering longer, their curiosity inching closer to the house. His wife's worry was palpable, her glances at their daughter filled with silent prayers. Despite his attempts to maintain calm, an undercurrent of tension seeped into their once harmonious home. One fateful evening, Tano returned late from the market, his basket light but his spirits weary. As he approached the house, he noticed the front door slightly ajar. Inside, his wife was in tears, her face pale with anguish. "She's gone," she whispered, clutching a small blanket. "Our daughter. They've taken her. The monkeys have taken her." Tano's heart stopped. He rushed outside, calling her name into the darkness, but the only answer was the rustle of leaves. That night, the emptiness in their home was suffocating. His wife's sobs echoed in the silence, and the space where their baby had slept became a haunting reminder of their loss. Tano sat by the fire, staring into the flames, his resolve hardening with every passing moment. "I can't wait any longer," he said, his voice steady but filled with pain. "I'll bring her back, no matter what it takes." At first light, Tano set out on a journey into the depths of the forest. The familiar paths felt strange, as if the trees themselves were watching. Each step was heavy with determination, yet his heart raced with fear. The forest, which once felt like a sanctuary, now seemed vast and unyielding. Shadows danced among the trees, and the distant calls of birds sounded like warnings. As he ventured deeper, Tano encountered challenges that tested his resolve. He crossed a swollen river, its icy waters numbing his legs as he struggled to reach the other side. He climbed steep embankments, the loose soil threatening to pull him back with every step. Thorns tore at his clothing, and the hum of insects filled the humid air. The forest seemed alive, its ancient energy both guiding and testing him. He paused at a clearing to catch his breath, his mind consumed by memories of Mimi's laughter. "I will find you," he whispered, gripping the small pendant she had worn. "Hold on, my little one." Finally, after hours of grueling travel, Tano reached the diviner's hut. The structure was barely visible beneath a canopy of vines, its thatched roof blending seamlessly with the forest. Smoke curled lazily from a small chimney, and the air was thick with the scent of herbs and earth. Tano hesitated, his heart pounding as he approached. The diviner emerged, his presence commanding yet serene, His long beard was streaked with gray, and his eyes seemed to pierce through Tano's very soul. "You've come seeking answers," he said, his voice low and resonant. "My daughter," Tano began, his voice breaking. "The monkeys took her. Please, tell me how to bring her back." The diviner listened intently, his expression unreadable. He motioned for Tano to sit, then began preparing a mixture of herbs and powders. "These monkeys you speak of are not ordinary," he said after a long silence. "They are all females, childless and longing for what they cannot have. Your daughter must have seemed like a gift from the heavens to them." Tano clenched his fists. "I've always been kind to them. Why would they do this?" "Kindness does not always shield us from loss," the diviner replied. "But there is a way to bring her back. It will require great sacrifice and even greater patience." The diviner retrieved 2 small bottles from a wooden chest, their contents shimmering in the dim light. "This medicine," he said, holding up the first bottle, "will transform you into a monkey. You must join their group, earn their trust, and find your daughter." Tano's eyes widened in disbelief. "Become a monkey? How will I—" "Listen carefully," the diviner interrupted, his tone firm. "The transformation is temporary. When the time is right, this second bottle will return you to your human form. But you must act with patience and cunning. Trust is not given freely." Tano took the bottles, his hands trembling. "Thank you," he said, his voice filled with resolve. "I will do whatever it takes." As he prepared to leave, the diviner placed a hand on his shoulder. "Remember," he said, his voice softer now, "the path ahead is perilous, but the bond between a parent and child is unbreakable. May the spirits guide you." Tano nodded, his heart heavy yet determined. He turned and stepped back into the forest, the weight of the bottles in his hands a reminder of the journey that lay ahead. As the trees closed around him, he felt the eyes of the forest upon him, its whispers urging him forward. Tano returned to his home and sat silently by the fire, staring at the 2 small bottles. His wife watched him with a mixture of hope and fear. "Will it hurt?" she asked softly, her voice barely audible above the crackling flames. "I don't know," he admitted, his voice heavy with uncertainty. "But I have no choice." With a deep breath, Tano uncorked the first bottle and drank. The liquid burned as it slid down his throat, filling his body with a strange warmth. His limbs began to tingle, then ache as they stretched and reshaped. His fingers curled into claws, his skin darkened, and coarse hair sprouted over his body. His senses sharpened. He could hear the rustling of leaves outside and smell the faint scent of bananas in the next room. The transformation was complete. His wife gasped, stepping back as tears filled her eyes. "I'm still me," he reassured her, though his voice was now a guttural growl. "I'll bring her back." Tano climbed through the window and into the night, his movements fluid and instinctive. The forest, once a labyrinth of shadows, now felt like an open map. He leapt from branch to branch, his body adapting to its new form with ease. Soon he heard the familiar chatter of the monkeys. As he approached the group, they stopped and stared, their dark eyes filled with suspicion. The leader, a large female, stepped forward, clutching his daughter Mimi protectively. Tano's heart ached at the sight of her, but he forced himself to remain calm. "I've come to join you," he said in their language, the words rough but intelligible. The monkeys murmured among themselves before allowing him to sit among them. He kept his distance, observing their behavior and learning their ways. Days turned into weeks. Tano brought bananas from his garden to earn their trust, careful not to reveal his true identity. He watched over Mimi, who seemed healthy and unharmed, though she cried often in confusion. His presence gradually comforted her, and she began to smile again. One day, a rival group of monkeys invaded their territory, threatening their safety. Tano fought fiercely alongside the group, driving the intruders away. His bravery earned him the leader's respect, and she began to trust him more, even allowing him to hold Mimi. As the months passed, the monkeys grew fond of him. They saw him as a provider and protector, relying on him for food and safety, but their trust came with new challenges. "You must marry us," the leader declared one evening, her tone firm. The other females echoed her sentiment, their eyes expectant. Tano hesitated, knowing this was the final step to securing Mimi's safety. Reluctantly, he agreed. Over time, all 13 monkeys gave birth, their attention divided between their own young and Mimi. This was the opportunity he had been waiting for. One hot afternoon, while the monkeys rested in the shade, Tano took Mimi and slipped away. The journey back was treacherous, but his determination never wavered. When he finally reached home, he drank the second bottle, feeling the pain of transformation as his body returned to its human form. His wife cried tears of joy as she embraced them both. Their family reunited at last. But deep in the forest, the monkeys were watching, their leader's eyes filled with a quiet promise. This was not the end. A year passed, and Tano's life began to regain a semblance of normalcy. His wife gave birth to a son, and their family felt whole again. Yet, despite their joy, the forest's presence loomed like a shadow. One evening, as the sun dipped low and shadows stretched long across the garden, the familiar chittering of monkeys filled the air. Tano froze, his heart pounding. They had returned. The leader of the monkeys emerged from the trees, her presence commanding and her eyes filled with purpose. "You broke our trust," she said in their shared language. "We nurtured your child, and yet you fled. Now we demand your return, or we will take what is owed." Tano stepped forward, shielding his family behind him. "You cannot take my son," he said firmly. "This ends here." The leader's gaze was unyielding. "Then come back with us," she demanded. "You belong to both worlds now." Tension crackled in the air as Tano struggled with his decision. His wife clutched their son, her eyes wide with fear and desperation. "Please," she whispered, "don't leave us again." But Tano knew there was no other way. "I'll go," he said finally, his voice heavy with resignation, "but my family must be left in peace." The leader nodded, and the monkeys fell silent. "We will honor your sacrifice," she said. Tano kissed his wife and son, his heart breaking as he stepped away. He drank the first bottle once more, his body convulsing as it transformed. The monkeys surrounded him, their chatter growing louder as they led him back into the forest. Days turned into weeks, and Tano fell into the rhythms of monkey life once more. He hunted, foraged, and protected the group from predators. But this time, something was different. The forest seemed darker, its whispers more sinister. Tano began to notice strange markings on the trees, signs of an ancient presence watching from the shadows. One fateful night, a fierce storm swept through the forest. Lightning illuminated the canopy as rain lashed down in torrents. The monkeys huddled together for safety, their cries drowned out by the howling wind. In the chaos, Tano saw a figure moving through the trees, a shadowy entity with glowing eyes and a menacing aura. It was the guardian spirit of the forest, angered by the broken balance. The entity descended upon them, its presence overwhelming. The leader of the monkeys stepped forward, bowing low. "Spare us," she pleaded. "We meant no harm." But the spirit's voice boomed like thunder. "The balance has been broken," it declared. "This man's actions have disrupted the harmony between your worlds." Tano stood tall, his fear replaced by a fierce determination. "If I must pay the price to restore balance, so be it," he said. "But leave the others out of this." The spirit regarded him silently, its eyes burning with an otherworldly light. "Your sacrifice alone will not suffice," it said finally. "The bond between human and monkey must be severed forever." With a wave of its hand, the spirit unleashed a surge of energy that coursed through Tano's body, binding him to the forest. His human memories began to fade, replaced by primal instincts. The monkeys watched in sorrow as their once leader became one of them, in spirit and mind. The storm subsided, and the forest fell silent. The spirit vanished, leaving behind an eerie stillness. Tano, now fully a part of the monkey tribe, led them deeper into the jungle, away from human settlements. His family, though safe, would never see him again. Years passed, and stories of Tano's sacrifice spread through the village. His tale became a cautionary legend, a reminder of the delicate balance between worlds. In the heart of the forest, Tano's presence endured as a symbol of unity and the cost of disrupting harmony. The storm passed, and with it, the presence of the guardian spirit. The forest grew still once more, though its silence carried a heavy weight. Tano, now fully integrated into the monkey tribe, led them deeper into the jungle, far from the reach of humans. Yet, his family's thoughts lingered with him, tethering him to a life he could no longer fully reclaim. Back at the village, Tano's wife stood at the forest's edge, clutching her son, while her daughter Mimi clung to her side. She whispered a prayer into the breeze, her voice breaking with emotion. "Come back to us," she pleaded softly, though she knew his return was uncertain. Months turned into seasons. One morning, as dawn painted the sky with hues of gold and crimson, the sound of rustling leaves broke the stillness at the forest's boundary. The villagers gathered in curiosity and awe as Tano emerged, his gait slow but deliberate. His body bore the signs of his time in the wild, scars from battles, a leaner frame, and a calm yet distant gaze. His wife ran to him, tears streaming down her face as she embraced him tightly. Mimi held his hand, her small fingers trembling. "Baba," she whispered, her voice filled with both joy and fear. Tano knelt to hold his family, his heart heavy with the weight of his journey. "I'm home," he said softly, his voice rough but steady. "But things must change." Tano called a gathering at the edge of the forest, where representatives of the village and the monkey and chimpanzee groups met. The leader of the monkeys stood beside Tano, her eyes reflecting the weight of their shared history. "We cannot continue as before," Tano began. "The balance between our worlds has been shattered, and to restore it, we must set boundaries." The monkey leader nodded solemnly. "We will no longer encroach upon human lands, but in return, you must respect the forest as our home." A young chimpanzee, acting as a mediator, stepped forward. "Each group will thrive in its own space," he said, "but we will remember the bond that once connected us." Tano carved symbols of the three groups into the trunk of an ancient tree at the boundary, sealing their agreement. "This tree will stand as a reminder of our pact," he declared. "Let it guide future generations to honor our peace." In the years that followed, the village and the forest coexisted with mutual respect. Tano worked to rebuild his life, sharing his story with his children and teaching them the importance of maintaining the fragile harmony between humans and nature. Mimi grew into a strong, compassionate young woman, deeply attuned to the rhythms of the forest. The villagers left offerings at the boundary tree during festivals, honoring the pact and their shared history. The monkeys and chimpanzees, now thriving in their own territories, observed the humans from a respectful distance, their lives intertwined yet separate. Tano, now an elder, often walked to the boundary tree with his grandchildren. He would trace the carved symbols with his fingers and recount his journey, the lessons of sacrifice, unity, and respect etched into every word. "We are all connected," he would say, his voice filled with quiet wisdom. "Though we walk different paths, the forest binds us." Mimi, now a mother herself, carried her father's teachings forward. She shared the story of Tano with her children, ensuring that the legacy of the man who bridged two worlds endured. In the heart of the forest, where shadows meet sunlight and whispers of the past linger, Tano's story remains. His journey reminds us of the delicate balance between humanity and nature, and the sacrifices made to preserve it. Though divided by necessity, their spirits remain forever intertwined, bound by the enduring promise of peace.